Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for Dr. Paul Robertson, founder and executive editor of ELE Academic Journal Group. And thank you for the Asian EFL Conference Committee for giving me an opportunity to deliver our research presentation today. And thank you very much for all audience. It is a great honor to be with you virtually today. Well, today I would like to present my research paper. I have already prepared my slide PowerPoint that I would share with you. So this is my research presentation entitled Investigating Students' Preparation for English Thesis Defence Examination, the Perspective of Lecturers and Students. So I'm the presenter. My name is Iskandar Abdul Samad from Kuala University, Indonesia. Firstly, I would like to introduce our research team. There are three writers for this research. The first one is myself, Iskandar Abdul Samad. And the second one is Dr. Siti Sarah Fitiani, MA. And the third one is Dr. Syiah. We have already divided our research presentation into 5 sections. The first one is we talk about thesis defense examination. And secondly, we talk about required competencies in 2 preparation subjects. And the third one is talking about research methodology. And the fourth one is talking about results and discussion. And lastly is conclusion. So firstly, talking about thesis defense examinations. So the terms thesis defense examination, or TDE, is called differently in universities across the globe. For example, in the USA, it is called institutionalized pedagogical activity. And in UK, it is called viva voce. And then in Europe, most of European countries, it is called public defense. And in Indonesia, we call it script oral examination for undergraduate degree. But for this research, for the consistency, we use the terms thesis defense examinations. So referring to undergraduate thesis defense examinations throughout this presentation. So the goal of thesis defense examination is actually, as a requirement for students to graduate from their universities. And thesis defense examination is having its own genre. But before we go on to that part, we would like to explain a little bit a theory about genre. So we start from definition of genre. So genre has been defined in different ways by many researchers over the years. The traditional definition of genre have been focused on textual regularities to differentiate the genres of heroic poems, tragedy, and comedy from one another. And it seems that the definition of genre is influenced by 3 traditions of studies of genre. So the first one is a tradition of the new rhetoric genre. And then secondly is a tradition of systemic functional linguistics. And the third one is a definition of English for specific purposes. So as you could see there, that Miller has defined genre as a rhetorical actions based on recurrent situations. This means that a genre is formed based on frequent practices within a given community that agrees to use these common practices as a convention in the community. For example, delivering a sermon. And then the second tradition is the systemic functional linguistics tradition. In this tradition, Martin defined genre as a stage, goal-oriented, and purposeful social activity that people engage in as members of the culture. So a genre is staged because it has several phases to reach the goal. It is goal-oriented because it aims to achieve something, and it is social because it is interactive. And the last tradition is English for specific purposes, or ESP. So John Swales defines genre as a class of communicative events, the members of which share some set of communicative purposes. The members use language as a medium to achieve their target purposes. Our current study assumes that definition of genre provided by Swales is more suitable for the TDE genre. So TDE as a genre in itself, TDE has interrelated elements that form the genre. These are goal, steps or structure, and then members, terminologies, and assessment criteria. Genre is a goal and stage-oriented activity. And it has a goal stages, or Swales call it as move, that the members have to go through. For example, there are some steps like preliminary steps, and then opening, defense proper, in camera, and closing. Researchers say that the practice of TDE may differ between one university and another university across different countries. So it really depends on the culture of the TDE of each university. There are two subjects talking about my university. There are two subjects that are prepared by Kuala University to prepare students to be competent in Thesis Defence Examination. The first one is research subject. In this subject, the students are prepared to be able to write in academic way. So the students are required to be able to write a thesis structurally and consequently to address the goal of their research project in the thesis. And the students are informed and taught about special terminologies in research area. And then the students are taught about a genre of the thesis itself. So a thesis has its own goal, structure, and also language feature. So a thesis has its own genre. And then in the seminar presentation subject, the students are prepared to be able to talk competently in front of the examiners. So as the stars in the event, the examinees need to have the oral presentation ability to appeal the examiners. And then they are prepared to have a sufficient ability in speaking general English to be able to competently communicate their experience and knowledge related to their research. And of course, they are also prepared to be able, competent in terms of the grammatical, in terms of sociolinguistics, discourse, and strategy. But a big question is why most of students at this university still poor in performing in the TDE. Our assumption is that it might be there is a problem in the preparation stage, which is in two subjects that prepare students to be competent in thesis defense examination. So our assumption is they may be lack of preparation. As we know that in research methodology subject, students are assisted to be able to write their thesis in academic way, while in seminar on ELT subject, the students are assisted to be able to present their research in English in the TDE. To find the answer, then we do research. We employ a qualitative study investigating students' preparations for English thesis defense examination. So we raise the issue of the perspectives of lecturers and students. And then we collected the data through interview, because it is believed to be interview is a useful way to gather information in terms of people's belief and perspective about the fact. And then we analyze the data from interview by following 4 steps suggested by Creswell. The first one, we organize the data, and then we categorize the data, we interpret it, and then we synthesis and make a generalization. There are 9 subjects involved in our research, 4 lecturers and 5 examinees. And this is the result of our research. So in the results, we will inform you about 2 things. The first one is the process of teaching and learning activities in research methodology subject. There will be information from lecturers and students. And the second one is the process of teaching and learning activities in seminar on ELT subject. From the lecturers, we find that for the research methodology subject, lecturers commonly taught the students how to design a PowerPoint presentation covering information about the research content. And then the second lecturer said that he taught them some important elements in academic writing. For the practice, he gave them a task to write about Kuala University, and the students were expected to describe about the parking and the procedure of paying tuition fees. And then we see the information from the students' experience. From student 1, he said that we were shown some materials on how to write academic writing. The lecturer also taught us about coherence and cohesion. And the second participant is saying that we didn't know how to conduct a research because we were not introduced to a format or a structure of a thesis writing, even though we were asked to write a minor thesis. And the third student said that I remember that the lecturer taught us how to write academic texts where we need to refer to some scholars when we argue or define something. Referencing style is also included in the teaching. And the fourth student said that the lecturer asked us to write a minor thesis and to present it in front of the classroom. And the last student said that we were not taught how to write thesis writing in detail. In this subject, we focus on how to design teaching materials for our teaching practice. And now we will see the teaching and learning activities in seminar on ELT subject based on lecturers and students' experience. So firstly, we see the experience from the lecturers. Lecture 1 said that in seminar on ELT, I taught the students how to open and to deliver important points in the presentation, as well as how to close it. I asked the students to select one topic of interest to be presented in the subject. I gave them a freedom to find their own topics unless they had any difficulties where I gave them alternative topics. And the second lecturers said that I asked some students to come to the front. I asked one of them to make a presentation. Some students were appointed to ask questions. These students had to listen carefully to the presenters in order to ask questions. The rest of the students acted as the audience or listeners. A timekeeper was also appointed during this practice. In addition to that, we created this subject to be like a real TDE. I focused on developing students' speaking skills to present their research results, because I assume that the students have been taught the content of the research in the research methodology subject, which they undertook in the last semester. Now we see the information from the students. The student 1 said that we were asked in the subject to make presentations one by one of proposals or papers as individual tasks. We also had a group task to do presentation in the subject. These tasks were then submitted in writing to the lecturer. And then student 2 said that in TDPU 2 or seminar subject, the lecturer gave us a topic, and that topic was expanded and presented individually, but the students were not taught the stages of presentation. And then the third student said that in this subject, students were encouraged to find a proposal from one of their seniors or a chapter from a previously presented thesis and present it to the class. Student 4 said that in the seminar on ELT classroom, we were asked to explain what we had written in our proposal in front of the classroom, and the other students asked questions. The lecturer did not ask questions at all. And the last student said that in the subject, we were given presentation materials and a topic title, which are from the sections of the proposals. And we were divided into groups. Those groups whose topic was about action research had to present and discuss that topic. And now we can see the match and mismatch about this subject. The match one is, in these two subjects, like in the research subject, the lecturers really teach students how to write a proposal. And then in the seminar subject, the lecturers have already taught the students to practice a research presentation. So the mismatch would be, firstly, designing the PowerPoint slides for presentation, and then writing paragraph with familiar topics. So a mismatch between materials provided and expectation. What the students need, actually, they need to have a deep understanding of thesis writing skills as a macro genre, because the material is not really matched to what students need. So this will also lead the students' performance in TDE, because their written competence is also assessed in this examination. And then in the seminar subject, presentation skills such as strategies to open, deliver, and close a general presentation, not focus on the TDE presentation. And then in lecture 2, he said that he focused on a real life TDE presentation. The mismatch is in terms of teaching materials and focus given to different lecturers in the same subject. So this means that the lecturers do not have a standardized syllabus, which results in teaching different materials. What researchers say about this one, about the TDE? So the lecturers of seminar on ELT subject need to teach oral competencies, ideally. This is suggested by Alptekin, particularly about oral competencies in TDE. And the real life TDE that some lecturers included in the activities should include all elements of TDE genre, as mentioned by Syiah. And then different institutions or departments have different stages of TDE. So depending on the culture of the TDE in each institutions or departments. So as a conclusion, the mystery of poor performance of students in the TDE at English Education Department of Kuala University has been found in this research. Some lecturers have done high efforts, but they do not fully help the students in the subjects to achieve the objective of the subjects. Consequently, the students are not able to fully prepare themselves for thesis defense, and this has led to their poor performance in the examination. The limitation of this research is that this research is only limited to investigate students' preparations for the English Thesis Defence Examination by looking at lecturers and students' perspectives. Further research is required. So further research are suggested to conduct classroom observations and also observations to the TDE events and see how the preparations in the classrooms affect students' performance in the TDE. So these are the references that we use in this research. Thank you very much for your participation and see you again next time.